Hello, this is Margaret Ajayi, the STEM Positive Disruptor. And today I have on my platform, on Mia's Conversation, Joshua Ajayi. And
Yeah,
he's a,
Ajayi.
okay, and he's a lead game developer. I mean, he does much more than that, but this is again what we want to do. Is to showcase the different roles within the STEM world. So the reason why we set up this platform is to educate, raise awareness, change people's perception, and demystify what STEM is, that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We want to bring the public into our domain. We want to showcase the diverse roles and the diverse people that work within our industry and people from all over the world, not just in the UK. And, my special guest is just traveled with his job, who tells more about that. And without further ado, welcome, Joshua. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank
I
you.
did no problem. I do admire what you do, and I'm quite keen to hear more about what you do as well. So please, introduce yourself and tell us more about what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Margaret. Hi, everyone. My name is Joshua Ajayi, and I am a game developer, AR, VR developer as well. I have spent roughly the past 6, 7 years of my professional career, trying to chart my path in the world of tech. Of course, I've worked with several teams, both locally and internationally. I also have a passion for education, right? I come from a background of education. My mom is an educationist. Also, it's one of the main motivation factors for me going into the tech field, right? That's why you see that a lot of my experience has been as an instructor, as a lead developer, as just any position where I have the platform or leverage to pass on knowledge in the tech field, right? So, of course, I have had the pleasure of course, being an instructor, game development instructor, for a Microsoft project back in the day while I was in school. That was sort of an entry point for me. Game development came knocking at my door right while I was in the university. Back then it was not a thing here in Nigeria. It was not really a thing. There were just only about a handful of people that I know that had dabbled into the field at the time. And it was quite a very daunting enterprise for me because I had no precedence. I had not a lot of figures to look up to back here where I grew up from, right? So a lot of the time was just me spending my time trying to just play around with software. Unity at the time, I was just playing with the software, trying to look at games. A lot of the games I had played growing up, I tried to look at them and try to, see how I could translate the experiences I was having there, over to the development side of things. It was not an easy task at all, right? And I had to, of course, had to lean on the internet. Of course, I would not say I'm self-taught because a lot of things I know, I learned, via this tutorial or that tutorial, even before I met a community of developers like myself. Of course, I leveraged on tutorials, I got myself well informed. Shortly afterwards, I was able to take up a very short contract as a game development instructor for Microsoft. And the initiative back then was the Women Tech Stars initiative, where women in this side of the world are being trained on tech skills such as web development, game development, and IoT, that's the Internet of Things, right? So at the time, it was a perfect opportunity for me to, step out and show what I know how to do, right? In my capacity, right? I was no professional, right? So, and if there's anything I've learned, you don't know what you know until you teach it, right? I believe you might not necessarily have the full comprehension of what you know until you actually have the leverage to teach that thing that you know. So I took that as an opportunity to impart knowledge. And then I realized that this was something I had a real passion for, right? So shortly afterwards, I dived into the massive technology field. That's augmented reality, virtual reality. I launched an initiative back then, which was called Ogma Africa. Ogma Africa was simply me trying to solve some of the little STEM issues that we were having in Nigeria back then. I'm not saying it's 100% solved now, but at the time, I wanted to contribute. I wanted to give back to my community. So I was actively looking for a way to contribute my quota, using my skills and everything I'd learned, right? So I went and I created a couple of applications, right? Mobile applications that are specifically designed for the practical aspect of STEM, right? Physics, mathematics, chemistry.
So I was just going to ask you to expand on that.
I created, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So physics, chemistry, geography, a lot of these topics that are really related to science, because I come from a science and engineering background, right? So yeah, I developed a couple of augmented reality applications that allowed primary school, secondary school students to have a more practical experience of a lot of the topics they're being taught in the class, right? So the motivation there was that there is a divide between teaching and learning when it comes to STEM, right? STEM subjects, right? There is a sort of divide when it comes to the theoretical versus the practical aspects of STEM. And I felt like the average African child does not really have access to a lot of the laboratory equipments that would suffice to help them internalize the topics they were being taught in class, right? So students were busy learning in class, but they never actually got the opportunity to practicalize some of these things. Now, I'm speaking for myself because, of course, I went to a public secondary school in Nigeria here, and it's a real struggle. It's a real struggle to actually carry out practical sessions based on the topics we're being taught in class. So that was a serious drive for me. I made a couple of applications, chemistry. You could carry out chemical reaction practicals, organic chemistry, a lot of these other topics that needed more practical explanation. I was able to recreate experiences like that into applications. And then we launched an initiative that was taken to several schools across Nigeria, right? We got a little bit of funding as a way of encouragement. A lot of the students loved it. You know what I mean? Having to see more, having to learn in a different approach, right? Different approach. Yeah. So I guess that's what stands out for me. And that's what my motivation is. The fact that I could introduce experiences to people that they would not normally have had the opportunity to experience, right? So yeah, that's pretty much sums up my background in games and immersive technology.
I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed because you know what you said in the beginning, that your background or your parents or your mom is an educator, and that in a way stimulated it and gave you that hunger to want to really give back or pass that knowledge that you gained. And I guess that also led to you developing those apps that allowed you to have that practical, see the creation of those subjects you're learning in school. Everything seems to be very theoretical, but there was no application. That was the hands-on practical solutions. And you saw there was a gap, and you felt that gap the way to need to be able to bridge the theory and the practical is to develop these apps. I'm assuming that, did you do it by yourself or with other people?
So initially I worked with a studio. Again, it was non-profit. It was I had no sort of financial motivation or whatever. It was just something I did purely out of my love for STEM and practicality, right? So yeah, I worked on it, the proof of concept up until development. It was not until later when I had MVPs, applications that were already done and ready to be expanded. That's when we started to get support from other developers. Of course, we reached out to a couple of developers around my locality back then, and of course, we were able to, do some expansion to the product, to the app, right? And that's actually, for me, it was one of the most fulfilling parts of my career, because there was a time, I think the last visit of the Prince of Wales, who is now the King of the UK, right? That's Prince Charles, King Charles, right? The last time he visited Nigeria, it was an opportunity. We did get an opportunity to discuss some of these things that we were doing to him, and it was a really, really interesting time for us, because we were putting ourselves out there, right?
Indeed.
When it comes to solutions that solve problems, real life problems, I feel like we need that platform. We need to put it, we need to leverage as much platforms, as much influence as we can, right? So it was a very perfect opportunity for us to, just pitch our initiative to the Prince at that time. And yeah, it was well received, and we got a lot of encouragement, and of course that really drove us to taking it to more schools in Nigeria. Yeah, of course.
That's very good. And I'm assuming that some of the schools are now using the app to help with the translation from the theory into the practical solutions, or give them a better understanding on how things are being done in relation to the subjects they're learning. So, just that's impressive. I'm really, really proud of you. Can you just so I'm assuming again that as a lead game, you develop educational games. Would that be a correct assumption, or is it varied?
Well, I develop all types of games, right?
Okay.
Of course, I love the educational genre, right? And of course, I have worked on quite a number of educational games, but yeah, I have worked on several games down the line. Of course, it's what's driven my professional career. I currently work with a team in the UK called Unbounded Earth, and we are creating gamified experiences in the metaverse, right? So what we do basically is we create a shared space that people could interact, and then we create gamified content that these people can interact with, which can be educative, could also be for purely for fun and educational purposes.
That's amazing. That's really, it's so amazing, because I mean it's what we do now, using augmented reality, virtual reality. That is a tool that's being used across the board. It's used in businesses, it's used in the education side, it's used anywhere really, wherever it's there. Immersive technology, it's everywhere now. Even here we can, on this Zoom, there's an opportunity to immerse yourself as well. So there's lots of platform for you to use it on. So, oh, by the way, congratulations on being nominated for an award. Congratulations. Yeah. So when do you find out if you won? And what is the award as well?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the award is it's called the Outstanding Leadership Award. And of course, this is organized by a conference called the Internet 2.0 conference. And
Okay.
this is a conference that that celebrates people that have shown some form of exceptional leadership in their field, in their career over the years. Of course, this is done as a way to not just, of course, encourage, but also to as a way to provoke, provoke thought leaders, bring out spotlights and highlight things that are being done, or work that is being done under wraps, that, bringing them out to the open, and then help people see that there are actually a lot of use cases to the field of tech, and particularly the massive technology field, right? Because one of the reasons I was nominated, of course, is for my startup called Empower XR. We are based in the US, and Empower XR basically is a solution that leverages on augmented reality to solve a particular problem in the field of manufacturing, right?
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what the problem is basically is that in the field of manufacturing, when you look at the figures, there's a lot of fatalities that occur every year due to complacence, while handling a lot of these industrial machines and operating some of this, equipment, right? So what we have done at Empower XR is to create augmented reality-based micro lessons that allows you to simulate safety procedures, right? So you have the opportunity to simulate safety procedures that will refresh your memory on how to properly operate a machine, without breaking any of the safety procedures, and thereby we are solving the issue of complacence, and in turn we are actually contributing our quota to reducing the number of fatalities that occurs in that industry every year. So for me, that I would say has been like one of the key deciding factors for my nomination on that award.
Well, congratulations. I mean, do you know, this is what you're showing, is that technology is being used in different ways. I mean, you're not just an educator, you're looking at, I'm assuming it's a team of you because it's based in the US. I know it's a virtual way of bringing a team together, which is fine. But this is what technology does. This is what it allows you to do. It allows you to to develop things across the board in a global sense, and that's what we love, and this is what we want to celebrate. This is what we want to showcase to our young people, that everything is possible. It doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter where you're from. Technology has that platform to allow you to mix with a range of people across the world itself. And so again, congratulations on your nomination. I do hope you win. But at least it's raising your profile as well, so well done on that.
Thank you.
And also, I know that you were in Saudi Arabia for while you were teaching, wasn't it? So is that also in relation to augmented reality virtual, or was it a different type of, or is it still to do with technology?
Okay. Yeah, so like I said, I have a continuing passion for passing down knowledge. I feel like I'm a hobbyist when it comes to that. I love doing it, and then I have actually paved a way in my career for that, right? So I have been involved with the Saudi industry for the past 2 years now. And what I have my contribution to that field is I've been working as an instructor, a game development instructor, actually. Right. I have been.
What does that mean? What does that entail? Tell us, because it's because some young people may decide, I don't really want to work in industry. I would like to teach. I like to be an educator. I like to be an instructor. So tell us what's the makeup of being an instructor, a game developer instructor, very briefly.
Yeah, for sure. So being an instructor is simply you just again being able to stand in front of people and teach what you know, right, in the field of game development, right? So if I have a skill for game development and I know how to do certain things in game development, and I
Give an
have made it,
example.
it doesn't have to be, of course, like it doesn't have to be you creating games, finished games on the market. You could have a specific skill set for you know, an aspect of game development, maybe sound designing, or maybe animations, or maybe programming, right? C# programming, right? You basically can teach. Once you know how to do any of these things, you basically can. No one person can be 100% game developer. And I'm just going to say that out now, because the reason why I say so is because the field is very vast, right?
Of course,
Very, very
yeah.
vast. Has a lot of parts that you could specialize in. You could be a generalist like myself. Of course, I have decided to be a generalist. You know, I know a little bit of everything, and that actually helps me to be able to guide other people, right? And again, it just does not necessarily mean that you are an absolute expert at this, right? It could just be that you have access to the right resources, right? Once you can point someone to a bank of resources that that you know has helped you and would help them, you are actually an instructor, right? So once people can look to you and feel like you are dependable, they could easily run to you and you point them in the right direction. That actually makes you an instructor. So over the years, you could build the skill, and be a more grounded professional at what you do, right? So for me, instruction is more of being resourceful, right? Knowing where I can point things to people. Like I've had a lot of people approach me, how can I start game development? How can I start AR? How can I start VR? That's like 80% of the interactions I get, right?
Yeah.
And so
what's your solution? So tell us.
For me,
okay.
Yeah, for me, it's the first thing is make sure you have a passion for it, right? So it's not just being an instructor, also being a developer as well. Make sure you have a passion for games development. Make sure you are staying yourself. Make sure you're not just jumping on a hype, because when the technicalities that are involved begin to creep up on you, your passion is what keeps you grounded. Your tenacity is being developed from your passion, right? And that way you can stay through the tough learning process. Because I say it's tough because it takes a while for you, right? But then, of course, Rome was not built in a day, right?
Sure.
Of course, there's this saying I love that says, if I have seen ahead, it is because I have stood on the shoulder of giants, right? And that saying goes to say that if you really want to move ahead or see ahead, you definitely cannot do everything by yourself, right? So there are people that have gone before you, that have done the hard work of putting resources together, right? And it would be very, very wise of you to leverage on these experiences, right? To leverage on these resources. And that way you have a very linear learning path, right? And that's what's really going to help and drive you down your career, right?
So true. You can't do it by yourself, but I think you're very right. You have to have passion for what you're doing. You can't go into something. Oh, you can, because some people do, because the opportunity has risen. But I think to have that that drive when things get tough, you said, then you're motivated based on your passion because you want it. It's something you enjoy doing, and it comes through. Just listen to you, Joshua. Your energy is just so beautiful because you're passionate about what you do. You're passionate of making a difference. Game development is something you love doing, but you also said you're a generalist, which means that you know everything. You're not an expert for one thing, but you can fit in anywhere. That means, as you said, you can be an instructor, you can be a developer, And also you're collaborating with different people in the UK, abroad, so many people. So the doors are opening in so many different levels as well. But also in the education system in Nigeria, what would you like to say to the government or the education system? Because it's not just in Nigeria where there's an issue of marrying the theory with the practical, although it's not as bad based on what you're saying. But what would you say how can we bridge the gap? Because I think this is very important, because you learn the theory, but then if you're not able to apply it, then you think you're lost. So unless you're very confident in what you're doing, you end up not doing or following through with what you graduated with. So what would you say to the educationists? How can we change that? Like I don't know, but not too long. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we need to challenge the status quo as individuals, and also as students, we need to yearn for more, right? So now this is the digital age, right? And we cannot compare right now to what it used to be, right? So if in the past, our governors or people in charge of the educational system in Nigeria and beyond do not have an idea on or understanding of how important, investing in technology education is, right? We as of this generation, the internet generation, have I feel like we know better and we can do better, right? We have access, right? So back in the day, right then, there were not a lot of computers available for us to, go to, and just play around with. It was a privilege for you to actually see a computer and be able to use it. But now we all own computers. A lot of us own smartphones, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us have access to information, right? So the first thing I would say is it starts with you, right? It starts with you. The more they see how much people are digitally learned, the more I feel like the educational system would by itself try to meet up to the demands of what the students are requesting for. So again, what do I mean? I've seen situations where students actually came together to start initiatives within the school, and this actually stirred up the leadership of the school or whatever to actually pay more attention to this move or to these initiatives, right? So what I'm trying to say is, of course, as much as we would love to wait for our leaders or our educational officials to do something for us in the educational system, I feel like it's up to us. While I was in the university, I got involved with a lot of groups, and my main drive was to actually help to sensitize people and to, of course, start a movement that would help people know or be aware that there is more to technology, right? So that actually got a lot of us noticed, a lot of initiatives that brought, the introduction of computer-based topics, subjects to the schools, some extracurricular tech activities that really helped to, encourage the next generation. So like I said, for a lot of us that have access to technology and the internet right now, I feel like it's up to us to, look inward, look at our passion and try to see how much we can tap into that well, and then, of course, drive ourselves to start innovating and to start collaborating. And I feel that the more that we do that, nobody's too young to do that. I've seen 12-year-olds doing a lot of cool stuff recently in tech, and I feel like this is the digital age. Nobody is bigger than anyone. Once you can tap into your drive and actually put in the work that's necessary. So that's my advice. You have access to the internet, make use of it.
I agree with you, and that's a good point. But what the thing is, the education system is in place. They need to invest in getting the upgraded whatever they have in place, computers, get it more relevant to, because you can't, how can you compete as a student if you don't have the tools that make you stand out? You can't. It means that you have to go out and retrain altogether. Yes, I do agree with you. It's the digital age and there are things you can do, but I think the education system has a big role to play because they are open. They're just as digital savvy as the young ones, because they have to be to teach the subject in the first place. And that means they also understand that there are resources that needs to be in place in order to support the young people, to support the students. So I do agree, don't get me wrong, Joshua, but I think, you know, everyone has a role to play. Even the government has a role to play. They have to have policy in place to encourage that.
About that. Yeah, I could say something about that. To be honest, I feel like there has to be a reform done to the educational system. When I say reform, not just a total overhaul, but just upgrades being done, right? So syllabuses need to be revisited. A lot of the techniques being taught in the classes, a lot of the things, textbooks, techniques that are being taught in schools are a little outdated now because of how technology has evolved, right? In the past, as a science student, there are several extremely complex ways of doing certain things, which right now there are softwares that would actually help you to to run simulations and do things within a very short time, and that actually gives you more accurate results and would help you to be competitive when you go out there, right? So I feel like right now the conversation we need to be having is with educators, and of course they need to see that there is a need for upgrade in how things are being done, in the techniques that are being used to, you know, taught in the classes. Of course, the government needs to actually provide equipment to facilitate these upgrades as well. So I feel like it's just a change that needs to be done in every layer of the educational system. And of course, you and I have a role to play. The government have a role to play. The educationists have a role to play, you know, in also upskilling themselves. A lot of the teachers that we have, you know, in this side of the world are not very tech savvy, of course. So again, you know, helping themselves by, you know, learning a newer way of doing things would really, really benefit everyone, including the students. And that would ultimately drive the next generation of technically learned students.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Joshua. I really appreciate it. I enjoy the conversation, and I thank you for the words of wisdom as well. The passion, the need for passion, the need to be able to share and part with all the information you have, share with other people, but also about us being the place of start where we need, because we have devices which allows us to access information, then we also have a part to play, but also the education system. The educators need to upskill, they need to improve, upgrade the resources that are available there, but also the government have a role to play. So everyone can have a role to play, because for the young people to be competitive with, it's a global world now. We're no longer isolated. It means that everyone wants to be in that place. Then we need to do something. Everybody has to. So thank you so much, Joshua. Really appreciate the conversation. Yeah. You are indeed a role model. You're really a role model. So I appreciate, and you know, I learned something new today as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Margaret.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, this is Margaret Ajayi, the STEM Positive Disruptor. Please do listen to this podcast with Joshua Ajayi. He's a lead game developer who's been nominated for leadership award. So I do hope he wins. But we were looking out for him as well. So please share the podcast. If you enjoy what we've spoken about today, let us all be the change agent that we want to see across the world. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.